You're listening to Bye Bye Baby, a Dob Berman production.
Hi, welcome to Bye Bye Baby. I'm Max, I'm your babysitter tonight, and my babies are...
Anna.
And...
Mariana.
Now remember, if you are under 18 and not old enough to watch an R-rated movie, then you are not old enough to be watching this.
Or listening to it, because it's a podcast.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, what's today's episode, gang?
Bisexual men.
You're the babysitter.
I'm trying to get you all involved in the learning process. Come on.
Oh, good. We get to learn about men.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Such an
So-
unexplored topic.
Wow. So, as you might have guessed, today's episode is about bisexual men. So, first thing I'd like to ask you two is, what are your perceptions of bisexual men?
I'm dating one. That's him.
I'm friends with 2, maybe more. That is to be discussed.
Okay.
I don't have any other strong feelings. They're people, and like, I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much same.
I did one time have a coworker tell me at length that bisexual men are better than straight or gay men. It was really funny because we were both dating bisexual men, but he was gay and I'm whatever I am. So that's an opinion that's out in the world.
Okay. Can you expand on that opinion for us?
No, because English was not his first language and he could not tell me anymore.
Fair enough.
If you're listening, Tony, hi.
I don't have any strong, like, they're human.
Human is a strong word.
Yeah, that is a strong word. They are creatures, just like us creatures, and we're just all different creatures, and I don't really have any feelings on the subject because...
It may be a controversial issue for some people, but we're like woke and cool, so it's fine here.
Yeah.
So, one thing I'd just like to pick up on, you guys, Mariana specifically, you said that you knew 2, maybe more. So I just want to ask, how many bisexual men do you guys know compared to the number of bisexual women you know?
Oh,
Okay, so I would just like to preface this by saying that out of the 6 people in this group, 5 are bisexual, or 4 are bisexual women. One's Julie and one's Max. So, like, that's a bit of a bias already.
But yeah.
Bias.
Well, I know you, obviously, a bisexual man. I've met one other bisexual man, and there are a couple people that I've met who were sort of either undecisive or never came out, and so obviously I don't want to like assume things, but I get vibes. So,
I don't go up to people and be like, hey, are you perchance bisexual? But I find that my female friends are more comfortable sharing that information with me than men because of the patriarchy or some shit.
Yeah.
Except Max. Max was very comfortable sharing that.
No, I thought he was gay for the first 3 months that I knew him.
Admittedly, you were told I was gay.
I was.
By...
A stupid person.
Yeah, let's not talk about him.
Yeah.
So, semi-related to that, I cannot count the number of bisexual women or non-binary bisexual people I know. I can count the number of bisexual men I know apart from myself on one hand, and it's 4.
Oh.
And this is you, the little thumb.
And I feel like it's interesting that there's either... I don't think it's likely that there's significantly more bisexual women than there are bisexual men, but I think it's interesting that you don't see or hear from a lot of bi men. I mean, you, Anna, you mentioned that most of them aren't as open with that, in my experience.
I don't have that many male friends.
Valid point. But if I met another bisexual man, it's come out after someone's brought up bisexuality, and usually it's after I've said, oh, I'm bi, and that person said, woo, me too, and then we have a bi five.
Oh.
A bi five.
That's what it's called.
Beautiful.
That's what it's called.
Amazing.
Have you guys noticed anything like that?
No.
I don't know. I think society gives women permission to be bisexual, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
They don't really give that permission
The
to
permission
men.
comes in the form of like, oh, that's so hot. Do you want to have a three-way?
Obviously, I'm not saying it's a
It's
good
not great
kind.
permission.
It's not a great kind of
Flawed
permission. Even it's dangerous. It's not as dangerous for us to say, hey, we're bisexual. It's fine. I feel like if men come out as bisexual, and obviously you can, like, step in here.
Yeah.
There's definitely more of a...
There's more stigma. There's more, you're a secret gay. I've gotten that in regards to Max. That like, oh, you're dating a bisexual man. Doesn't that mean he's secretly gay? And I'm like, I have some anecdotal evidence that would prove otherwise. But okay.
It's like a lot of the stereotypes that are applied to bisexual women are just like 10 times worse applied than to bisexual men, because on top of being bisexual, they're men. So automatically
Men are the worst.
They must be
No
hiding that they're actually gay. They must be pretending for some reason. Yeah. I'm sorry, dude. That's hard.
Yeah,
It
it kind of
sucks.
sucks.
That sucks. How
so-
do you go? How it's worse for you?
Yeah,
Tell us about
it's
your
kind of
struggles.
in theory, it's you get all of these stereotypes. In theory, you'd think it'd be worse for bisexual men and bisexual women, but at least I've never had anyone ask, "Do you want to have a threesome?"
Oh, I've had people ask if they could be in our threesome.
Really?
Like one person. They were very drunk.
Ew.
They
I
were
just
hot.
love the way you phrase that. Like, can they be in our threesome? As in, you've already have an established threesome.
But that would be a foursome,
and
wouldn't it?
they wanted to be in on the threesome, so it became a foursome. That is how I
Yeah,
interpret
it's just like
it.
the wandering like third member of our little troop.
The fourth wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've got this written in my notes as toxic masculinity and all that.
Oh, hate that. Not about it.
Do we feel that affects bisexual men?
100%.
Definitely.
Okay. How do we feel like that affects bisexual men?
Well, bisexual man, how does it affect you?
So, I feel like I don't like to think that I'm affected by the patriarchy, but I'm definitely affected by the patriarchy.
Dude, everyone's affected by the patriarchy.
I know.
Don't be so
it
full of
sucks.
yourself. You're not
Oh
special.
God, I'm part of the problem.
Well, I'm just gonna, man at you for a minute and tell you how you're feeling.
Sure.
I think there is a stigma against being considered weak, and that weak and gay are sometimes put together, or anything feminine, including liking dick, would be considered a weakness, and men are, hyper-bullied for having weaknesses, whereas women are like, it's cool, you got lady identity, that means you're allowed to be weak, I guess. But I can imagine that it would be in a society where you can't even be like, I'm sad about a bad thing that happened to me, being like, hey, I have a thing that would be perceived as weakness, would be scary to come out and say.
Yes. I never felt it was perceived as weakness when I started questioning my sexual identity and was sort of like, am I bi? I do like men.
That is what that
Think
means.
I might be bi.
Maybe.
Sorry, this is a tangentially related story. Years ago, shortly after Doctor Who had the revival, all my stories relate to Doctor Who, I'm sorry.
It's true.
I was talking with a friend about Captain Jack, and I said...
A bisexual character?
Yep.
Or pan or something.
He just goes for anyone gorgeous enough.
A shallow character?
Yeah. But bear in mind I was like 12 at this point, and I brought up with a friend that like, oh, I think Captain Jack's like bisexual or something, which is kind of weird. And his friend was like, well, bisexual people are just normal people. And that was a point where like my head went, wait, are we allowed to be bisexual? Is that an option? Can we do that? And I'm realising that was my mental process instead of, oh, I guess they exist.
Wow.
It's not that sad. It's
Aw.
like,
Kind of sad.
It's a little bit.
Like all the stories you tell.
wow, yeah. So,
That's harsh.
I have like, it wasn't until I got a bit older I started realising that there was opinions by shitty people that bi men were somehow not proper men. It wasn't proper manly.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. It wasn't until I got older that I saw stuff like that, and even then, it seemed to be mostly the same sort of shit that gay men got from the straights. TM.
Yeah, because there was a perception that bi people are just gay light.
Yeah.
Or diet gay.
Or straight light.
True. And somehow if you're bi, you're both. Which is like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got this saved. There's stuff I've got saved for another episode that we'll get more in depth into that. But yeah, the patriarchy is a steaming pile of garbage. So, I know this episode should be mostly focusing on bi men, but I just wanted to draw comparisons because that's how I do my shit. How do we feel about... You mentioned gay light?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. So, why do we think that exists?
People suck, man. End of answer. I don't know.
I think it ties in a little bit with what you were talking about before, of what Anna specifically said about how anything gay is perceived as weakness, anything feminine is perceived as weakness. So even if you have a slightly bit of it in you, for example, being bisexual, then you're perceived as weak, which is a falsehood because it has nothing to do with your strength.
No.
Either physical or emotional or mental or whatever, it has nothing to do with your sexuality. So telepathic strength, also nothing to do with
the
sexuality.
gays are so much more telepathically strong than the straights. It's just a fact.
Yeah, that is true.
They can just like lift shit with their minds and it's whatever.
So we can only like...
Yeah, I can like set things on fire.
Kind of like hover things a little bit off the ground, but it was never like my strong suit.
Yeah.
I'm much better at murder. Anyways, yay!
High five! So back to bisexual men, because apparently I'm the babysitter now.
Back to bisexual men.
So this is odd question, but what do we feel are societal assumptions or stereotypes that society at large has of bi men and bi women, and what do we feel is the same? What do we feel is different? Yes, Anna.
I've heard, and again, this is not something that I personally believe because that would be beyond fucked up based on my whole like situation, but I've heard that bi people are more likely to cheat. I've heard that bi people are just greedy. I've heard that they are indecisive. I've heard that they are afraid to come out all the way. I've heard that they're really good dancers.
You've also met me.
Well, I didn't say all of them.
And yeah.
And she also didn't say that these were true.
True.
So
Tori's a good dancer.
Anyway.
Are there any other stereotypes that I missed?
I don't know, but do you feel those stereotypes are applied to just men, just women, or both?
I think I've heard more likely to cheat has been more applied to women, but I've heard greedy applied to men more.
Okay.
I don't know if that's just something that's from my own personal experience.
Yeah, I'm sort of...
Yes, Mariana.
sorry. Personally, regarding those stereotypes that you mentioned, the only one that I've ever really seen used regarding to bisexual men a lot is they're actually gay but hiding it. I see it constantly, especially because I am in a group like of people, humans who speak a lot of languages.
Oh, humans.
And it's like an LGBT group for people who like languages. It's weird. And a lot of people in that group are gay men. And I see sometimes a lot of posts about bisexual men. Or at least I've seen some of them. And not all of them agree with this. And a lot of them sort of like stood up in favor of bi men. But some of them in the group I've noticed that can be a little bit prejudiced as well. It's like, oh, well, they're just waiting to get out of the closet. I also came out as bisexual before I came out as fully gay, blah, blah, blah,
Good
blah,
for
blah,
you.
blah. And
Labels are
a thing.
Ugh. Labels are fluid, man. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a whole other episode, y'all.
Yep.
Yes, but that's definitely one of the stereotypes that I see mostly attached to bi men.
Mm-hmm.
All the other ones I've seen apply to bi women.
Have you heard of the like gold star gay phenomenon?
Yeah.
Which is some bullshit, by the way.
I
Don't
think
do that.
know the term, but
It's a gay man who's only ever been with gay men who've never been with women. There's no, and it also applies to lesbians too. Yeah, it's a lesbian who's only ever been with
other lesbians,
like
women.
I don't know how to say those, like pure lesbians. Which, when you put it like that, you can hear how fucked up it sounds.
Yeah. That's so dumb, and I hate it so much.
It's bad.
I personally do know a lot of people who similarly came out as bi, and then were like, no, I am definitely gay. And they basically just did that because they still, either because of socialization or because...
It's scary to discount a whole gender.
Yeah.
What if you change your mind down the path and then, there's always that fear, definitely.
Yeah, you go from porque no los dos to no, solamente uno. And it's scary.
What does any of that mean?
Porque no los dos is why not both, and solamente uno means just one.
I feel like that you could have got that from context clues and the hand gestures.
Okay, I'm an idiot. And remember that our listeners can't
see the gestures.
Yeah.
That's their fault.
Go learn Spanish. This is a bilingual podcast.
Bilingual.
Y'all.
So.
Oh, I wanted to wrap up a thought.
Oh yes, sorry.
I
can't remember what it was.
You were talking about bi...
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember.
Of course you were talking about it's bi baby.
So I don't have a problem with people that use, and this applies to both men and women, but I just see it predominantly happening with men. But I've definitely met some women who have done it too. That people who come out first as bisexual and then years later come out as homosexual. I don't have a problem with that because sexuality is a journey.
Yeah.
Sexuality is fluid. I came out as bisexual and later on I came out as pansexual. And even now, sometimes I use the term bisexual as we talked about or will talk about in a future podcast.
And nothing with humans is static. Like
exactly.
When I was like 3, I said my favorite color was green. And when I was like 8, I said it was yellow. And obviously it's blue. But like...
Obviously.
But that doesn't mean that I didn't like green when I was 3. I just that was my favorite crayon, bitch.
Yeah.
Exactly. So things can change, things can evolve. You can discover new feelings or you can interpret feelings that you had before that now you see in a new light, and that can change a lot of things. So I definitely don't blame or judge anyone that uses bisexuality to sort of as a step up.
Yeah.
But just don't think that's all bisexuality is. Yeah. Don't think that bisexual people aren't valid and that they're really just either experimenting or waiting to fully come out of the closet, because that is a lie. There's a lot of people who just stick in the middle.
Just because yellow isn't my favorite color now doesn't mean that there aren't people who have yellow as their favorite color.
Exactly.
Yeah. Done. Perfect metaphor.
Booyah.
I mean, those people are monsters, but...
Okay, and after alienating anyone in our audience whose favourite colour is yellow because they're monsters.
Doing so good.
I can't believe you guys actually let me babysit for this. Terrible decision. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it's super duper weird that the straights are mean to the bis and then the gays are mean to the bis. I'm like...
No one's nice to the bis.
No one's nice to the bis.
Yeah.
Except other bis. And even then...
the ace community and the bi community have a history of mutual support.
Yes. Actually, there's this ace page that I follow on Tumblr, and they're always posting bi supportive stuff as well. We have to be there for each other, and I love them very much.
Oh.
And also
shout out to that page.
Yeah, it's an Umbrella Academy page.
Of course it is. As I briefly mentioned, I think my first realisation that bisexuality is a thing was Captain Jack Harkness, the face of both. I'm going to derail this slightly to talk about bisexual men in fiction.
Yeah. That's chill. They have some, probably.
I have issues with the perception of the perception and portrayal of bisexual men in media that I personally have consumed. If you've got any recommendations that are better than the stuff I'm about to bitch about, please tell me. The first complaint I've got is...
This is a call-out post now.
This is a call-out. So one thing that's always bugged me is I feel like a lot of shows will introduce a bisexual character because, we want to have LGBT representation, but we don't want to make them too queer.
Sorry, now that you started talking about this, I remembered the most perfect bisexual character in all of media, which is Jean-Ralphio from Parks and Rec.
He's bi?
There's a whole episode.
He is?
Yeah, it's not really dealt with, but there's just a moment where it's like, how are you doing, gorgeous? Oh, and you too, beautiful. Oh, look at that! I call them beautiful. Guess I'm open-minded as hell.
Oh, shit,
I never got that as him being bi.
You're the worst bi ever.
I know. I have the most terrible gaydar.
Shit, I remember that. Yes. Let's hashtag Jean-Ralphio the Bisexual.
Jean-Ralphio is a bicon.
He's the Bicon of the whole show.
Jean-Ralphio the Bicon.
In TV, I can think of Jean-Ralphio and Torchwood. I feel is a. I love Torchwood. It is a glaring example of just shoehorning bisexual characters in a shitty way. Ostensibly, everyone in that show is bi. That's what Russell T Davies has said.
Good for them.
And I feel like you see Jack being bi, just all over the place.
He's just biased everywhere.
If you've not watched Torchwood, the secondary protagonist in that show is Jack is an open-minded as hell bisexual man from the 24th century, and the other male characters in Torchwood are Owen, who everyone says is bi, but he just gets one scene of, let's be honest, trying to date rape another guy.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
Bis don't.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't date rape.
And also, bis don't.
Yeah.
That's not
a... no one date rape, please.
Please, just...
And then Yanto... I really want to talk about Yanto Jones.
His little accent and his little suits.
He's so Welsh and he's so lovely.
He's got a little suit.
And I feel like Yanto's bisexuality, if it can even be called bisexuality, I want to get into this, I think that's treated really well. Because in the series, when Miracle Day rolls around and they talk about his relationship with Jack, he says, I don't think I'm bi, I don't think I'm gay, I think I'm straight, but I am in love with Jack. And Jack's the only man I've ever been in love with. And if you get into the audiobooks, then they really, really examine his relationship with Jack. Broken, and there's one that came out very recently called Paradise or Heaven or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, sorry.
Any more characters that you want to criticize?
The one I really want to criticize is, and I love him so much, Zevran Aranai from Dragon Age. Because he is every fucking stereotype of bisexual people, and the queer community just rolled into one.
Oh.
He's into leather, he's cool with cheating, he has sex with people to achieve a goal. He's lucky he's sassy.
I mean, I relate to, two of those things. I like leather. I'm very sassy.
You are. But you've never killed anyone.
Or has she?
You've never killed anyone and bragged about it.
Not to you.
Oh yeah, she brags about killing people.
But apparently the later... I've only played Origins. Apparently the later Dragon Age games are a lot better with bisexual characters. And a lot better with queer characters in general.
I do know of a couple of examples, but...
To quote The Good Place, I just want to quickly say...
I haven't played the games yet
Fair
either, but I've seen some scenes because a friend of mine was trying to get me to play. Okay. But I'm still going through the first one.
I just remembered the quote from The Good Place. It's 2019. More guys should be bi.
More guys should be bi.
More guys should be bi.
The end. I did it.
I feel like the toxic masculinity stuff has been stopping men coming out as bi. I know.
Yeah, there's no shame in it. There's nothing wrong with it. But the fact that society makes people think that's fucked.
I've met people who are... And here's the thing. I understand there are people who are like, oh, I'm only really attracted to women, but I'm cool with giving blowjobs. I know a couple of people like that, and I feel like maybe that is how they identify, and if it is, that's cool. But I met I've met more of them than I have men who identify as being bi. I think that's kind of weird. And I feel like there are just a load of men who are like anxious about not being straight.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm reading too much into it.
May I just go over my recommendation of a good bisexual representation?
Yes,
Is
please.
this the Loch Ness Monster?
No. Yes. Sorry. I thought you were asking like if the character that I was gonna talk about is the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, the Loch Ness Monster famed Bicon.
Our audio listeners are completely fucking confused.
There's
right now.
ornaments here, and I saw one that was a Loch Ness Monster.
Okay, so
What are your recs?
my recommendation, I think there's more than one, but I thought
Umbrella Academy?
You can say
I
yes.
can, but actually no. I'm
Just a
gonna
guess.
I'm gonna reserve that for a later episode. This is a character that I think he was the real first male bi character that I've seen, and I'm not saying he was the best representation that I've seen, but especially for the time where I started reading the books, I really appreciated having some more representation in media, because I didn't like what they were doing with bi females, which was having them kiss a girl and then end up with a guy like immediately after
That was cool.
and calling them bi. So I really appreciated having a character like in a book who was just bisexual and like 400 years old and just unashamedly who he is. And that is Magnus Bane from the Mortal Instruments series. He is also, even more people might know him from the TV show Shadowhunters, which is the TV show that they made based on the Mortal Instruments books. But Magnus is a 400-year-old warlock, very bisexual warlock, loves glitter and eyeliner, has beautiful cat eyes.
Glitter is a problem. It's like herpes. Once you have it, it never leaves you.
Yes, that is true. But he is magic, so he can like magic it away or magic
That
it
probably still doesn't work.
Well, that is true.
Glitter's a problem.
But he is amazing, and since he's 400 years old, and this series is fucking ginormous, there's like 6 main books, and then 3 books prequel, and 3 books sequel, and then there's extra short stories, including a full book called The Bane Chronicles, which is just about him.
And his
So-
bisexual adventures, his slutty adventures.
Basically. There's like
Nice.
loads of books in the series, and he shows up in all 3, like the prequels, the main series, and the sequels. So you get to see plenty of him, and you see him with different people, except when he meets his true love, which I'm not gonna spoil who it is, but it's pretty obvious from like, because
The guy from the show, right?
y'all go watch it. Y'all go watch it. So it is Indonesian. I believe, yeah, I think he is. Well, technically he's half Indonesian, half demon from hell. So-
Demons.
Indonesian.
Indonesian. Yeah, it's like he's half
Having one in Dalmatian.
Indonesian from hell, and he is amazing. And honestly, Magnus Bane, go check it out. That is my recommendation for the day.
Okay. So, I think we've said
So many things.
yes.
A lot
of things.
Some of which were related to bisexual men.
Always some.
That's a win.
So, this has been Bye Bye Baby. You can find us on Twitter at,
Bye Bye Baby podcast.
on YouTube at,
Bye Bye Baby podcast.
on Tumblr at.
Bye Bye Baby podcast.
If it's Bye Bye Baby Podcast, it's probably us. That's BIBIBABY. So, what are your thoughts, opinions? What are some bi stereotypes you've heard of? What are your thoughts about bisexual men?
And what
And
color
how-
do you associate with your sexuality?
If you say yellow, I will hunt you.
Send us an email at byebyebabypodcast@gmail.com.
And if you... I can't give advice. I'm a terrible person for giving advice.
Love yourself.
But
Accept
if
yourself.
you are a guy who's having trouble because you're coming out as bi, then there are resources for you that can help, and we will drop them in the show notes for you.
And we love you.
You're doing
Yes.
amazing.
And if any of you need to talk, you can always email us. We will be sure to answer any questions that you have.
Just to cover our butts legally. We're not professionals. We're just chill people who would be happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Don't look to us for any help, but we're here to support you.
yeah, this is not professional help. This is just
We're
if you need a
idiots.
friend, if you need a shoulder, a friend, friendly conversation, very non-professional.
We know zero things.
Cannot stress
Yes.
that enough.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you for listening. I've been Max.
I'm Anna, and I'm a baby.
And I'm Mariana, also baby.
Bye,
Bye,
babies.
babies.